How does one think about that they want to do a CA or they should do a CA, and how does it help?
CA may not be the only option in today's world.
When somebody does CA or chooses a CA track, what are the skills they end up building?
The first part is your hard skills. The second part is accounting is a language, just like say English or French, etc. would be, and you learn that language, and it's a very important language to have. Like any other subject, the more you practice, your thinking becomes better.
If I had to explain it to a 5-year-old as that you are a lawyer that deals with the financial matters of corporates, right?
That's right.
What kind of careers does that leave me with?
So there are very, very specific careers which only CAs can do.
What is the impact of AI on the roles that we've been talking about?
A lot of your basic research roles easily be subsumed by AI.
Pursuing a career in CA is not just about crunching numbers, but it's about playing a crucial role in the financial ecosystem. Today, to explain the CA track, we have with us Rajat Kumar. He's a faculty at Masters Union and has worked across multiple brands, including McKinsey, Star TV, Snapdeal, Car Dekho, and is currently the managing partner at his own fund, Nandan Capital. Rajat is a former Wharton MBA and will help us decode the different career paths that the CA track can take you in. Rajat, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you so much.
So today our audience are students who are interested, school students who are interested in the world of finance, who want to build a career in finance, and their parents who may or may not know much about the finance ecosystem, right? So I'm going to ask you questions around, your journey. I think you've had a stellar, successful career in the world of finance. You started long back. I think you did CA right after during your college or after your college? During your college, right? So let's start with that. Tell me more about how does one think about that they want to do a CA or they should do a CA, and how does it help?
So, CA may not be the only option. In today's world, there's a CA, there's a CFA. For certain people who might be interested, there's a CS, company secretary. There's also a cost and work accounting. In my case, I think what happens is a lot of the people today who are pursuing commerce usually then want a specialized degree to go with that as well, right? And it's just the simple competitive pressures at play. In my case, back in the day, I think CA was pretty aspirational. And you all knew that, it'll probably give you some kind of an edge. We still didn't know what kind of an edge it would give us in recruiting or even in professional careers. But a lot of us who were reasonably ambitious said, "Acha, saath kar lete hain." So that's how my journey started. And I said, okay, I will just pick up my CA. I was always a commerce guy. So I said, okay, I'll take this with my graduation.
And tell me more about when somebody does CA or chooses a CA track. What are the skills they end up building?
So I'm going to split that into two parts. The first part is your hard skills, right? The second part is not your hard skills, but just the thinking skills or the softer part, right? So in the hard skills, the kind of skills that you're going to end up doing is you're just going to be able to look at a financial statement of a company and have a point of view about it. Is it a good company, bad company? Is it something you can invest in, not invest in? What do you think the company is going to be doing 1 or 2 years later, right? So accounting is a language, just like say English or French, etc. would be, and you learn that language, and it's a very important language to have to learn, right? So you do that one. The other thing you end up doing automatically is you get a very, very good sense of the laws at play. For example, you may not become an expert from day one, but you have a very, very good foundation around, say, the Income Tax Act, the GST Act, various other acts under which we operate, the financial ecosystem of laws and regulations that surround us, right? So not only now do you know how books are kept, how to analyze a company, you also know the regulatory framework in which things are done. For example, if one company wants to merge with another, you want to buy out a company. It's not just a question of, I pay this much cash and you pay, give me the assets or whatever. There are huge amount of laws at play there as well.
Like what are the tax liabilities of the combined?
What are the tax liabilities? There are judicial sections you have to take care of. There are regulatory bodies you have to go out with. Unless you know that, so you have that knowledge, you can't just go around buying a company or becoming a partner with another one. Or even know the due date of filing your tax return, right? Something as simple as that.
True. We all do that.
Yeah. So that's the the hard skills part. The soft skills part is, like any other subject, the more you practice, your thinking becomes better. No matter what, you end up becoming a structured thinker, logical thinker, etc. And even if you're not practicing CA, after X years in your career, maybe you've taken on a business role, those skills persist no matter where you are and what you're doing.
Fair. So, talking about the hard skills, you mentioned that you get to know about the laws and the implications and how companies have to live according to those laws, right? So, in my mind, it kind of translates, if I had to explain it to a 5-year-old, as that you are a lawyer that deals with the financial matters of corporates, right?
That's right.
Similar to how you have lawyers related to the civil law, criminal law, and
That's
other
right.
aspects of it. Now, that tells me that there would be a lot of career options that would open up once I have this hard knowledge, and I'm assuming CA, because it's laws related, has to be tied to a country, and CA is for India. Similarly, there would be others for US.
There will be a CPA in the US. There'll be so there will be country specific.
So if I'm studying CA, I am gonna be well versed with the Indian laws.
That's right.
Related to the financial matters
That's
of
right.
corporations, right? Now, what kind of careers does that leave me with?
It's a very, very wide variety. So let me just talk about finance careers in general, right? And I would say in all of them, if you're a CA, you can fit right in. Okay. So there are very, very specific careers which only CAs can do. For example, you want to be an auditor. Okay. What does that mean? Every company, anywhere in the world, when they prepare the sets of accounts to show to the public in general, you need someone to tell the public, hey, listen, I have also looked at this set
And
of
it is
accounts and it's kind of right? That role is done by a CA. I mean, in India, it's a CA. In various other countries, there are statutory bodies which say this can be done only by these kind of people. So in India, anyone who's a practicing chartered accountant can actually audit and certify a balance sheet and a P&L statement. Right? No, if you're a CFA or any other kind of profession, you can't do that. Right? So this is the part which is only for CAs. Then there are a bunch of other things that you can do. You can, for example, be a tax consultant. There are millions of dollars that you can actually save in taxes, plan around taxes if you know the laws well. There are a bunch of exemptions given for particular kinds of industries, right? Someone needs to be advising you on what those exemptions are, how you can take them, how you can benefit from them. Those are careers that a CA would actually just fit right into, having studied all that. I'm going to leave out now the kind of careers that are statutory in nature, right, which I just spoke about. Let's talk about roles within a company, right? Roles within a company, every company has a finance function.
Yeah.
You can't survive without it. CAs can play multiple roles there, right? The two kinds of large functions that happen within finance are what's called controllership functions and treasury functions. Let me just take half a minute to explain each of them.
Sure.
Right? What are treasury functions? Treasury functions is, oh, you know what? I have a cash surplus lying with me as a company, very profitable company. I need to invest it somewhere. Where do I invest it? How do I invest in stocks, in bonds, in real estate, within the business, etc., etc. So anything which is external investment related, that's called a treasury function. And if you know accounts and if you know return on capital, etc., etc., you're going to be playing that role. Similarly, if you're a company looking for funding and therefore you need investor relations and people who can speak to investors in their language, again, it's part of the treasury function. So again, CAs are very well positioned to be taking those. Then there's the controllership function. What are controllership functions? Someone's doing a business. So a company has 3 departments. Each department needs to have a budget. Then someone needs to be monitoring whether the company is within the budget, outside the budget, as a department, etc. Generate reports, etc., etc. Be a partner with the person running the business, right?
Yeah.
Again, those roles are controllership roles. Those are also therefore done by CAs, right? So step back, a bunch of other roles. For example, you're a wealth manager. What does a wealth manager do? A wealth manager advises other people on where to invest their money. These are the kind of stocks. Within those stocks, these are the particular kind of subsector stocks that will give you this return. I recommend doing this. I recommend putting so much in bonds or in fixed income or in real estate, etc., etc. Again, if you're a CA and if you know how to look for trends and fundamentally be able to analyze a company, those roles are great for you.
Got it.
They could be M&A experts, right? I want to buy a company. I want to sell a company. Someone needs to figure out a broad sense of what this company is worth, whether the company has any challenges in it, right? For example, there could be regulatory problems happening with the company, etc., etc. So CAs actually can be great advisors in those. There are private market investing that a CA would do. For example, I'm doing private investing, right? So be it debt investing or VC investing, private equity investing. Again,
And these roles may or may not, I mean, may be open to CA, but others can also do it.
others can also do it. The only one where only a CA can do it is that entire role where you have to sign a balance sheet and certify it, right?
Got it.
And then there are trading roles and, you be a
Right.
share trader and stuff like that. So all that
So
stuff.
if I were to take an analogy, because I'm
Right.
not from the finance world, and kind of again very simplify it, let's take an example of running a household. So in our house, if we have extra money, we would invest in savings, we'll do FD or we'll put it in mutual funds, etc. That's what the treasury is, right?
ਹਾਂਜੀ.
Or if we need to buy a house or a car, we need to take loan from the market. That's the arrangement of cash either to be deployed or to be raised.
Hundred.
That's treasury.
Perfect.
And then you said controllership, right? Which is more around budgeting, which is what I think my mom has done
Precisely, right?
throughout,
Yeah, someone brings in the salary and mom says, अच्छा तुम्हारी पॉकेट मनी इतनी है या तुम्हें इतना है और इतना मेरे को EMI के लिए रखना है, इतना ही है, बाकी ये बचता है, इससे तुम जाके कपड़े खरीद लो. That's it.
Correct, right? And then
Right.
you make sure the house is running
That's
in a balanced way. So those are the two functions that you broadly classify.
Yeah.
Then the roles that you said, which is more around wealth management or you said private markets, etc. I think it's part of treasury where you're going a little bit more into depth and saying I specialized in managing this kind of or
these roles
investing.
could be within a particular company, but there are specialist firms which end up doing that as well.
Correct.
For example, if you want to work for a bank, so you want to work for a Goldman Sachs or you want to work for a JP Morgan or a Citigroup, etc., they'll probably be advising companies on a bunch of this stuff, right? On
Correct.
if you want to buy another company, here's my investment banking team, which just want to help you do this, right?
And help you think through what are the 10 things that you have to look at.
That's right.
Including some of the CAs, some of the roles which only the CAs can do is what you talked about, the tax liabilities, right? If you merge these two companies, hey, by the way, this is the tax.
This is the extra tax. However, on the other hand, if you buy only this subsidiary which is based in this location, then your tax liabilities just drastically goes down because of the tax treaty this company
Or
this
the
country
laws
has
around
with
the
the with India and so on and so forth.
Fair. Now tell me a little bit, and we have all had CAs in our life when you talk about just filing your own returns, right? Now tell me, I mean, you started as a CA, but then you went on to do consulting, you went on to take leadership roles in startups, and then now you're running your own investment fund, right? Which invests in private markets. So tell us how you built on your CA capabilities, and then over time, how did your career pan out, and what strengths does your CA background give you across all your roles?
So the one thing, maybe it's just the class 11 and class 12 commerce as opposed to a CA, was just the ability to think through journal entries. The language of accounting starts with a debit and a
entries,
credit. It's called a
yes.
journal entry.
Debit and credit.
Debit and credit. When you don't have that very, very basic thing drilled into you, when you start looking at a balance sheet, when you start looking at a P&L, or when you start analyzing company, you start saying, oh wow, man, great reserves, great current ratio, great this, great that, or whatever. I think what I use even today, and I have used throughout my senior leadership roles in companies, etc., when I'm analyzing something. For example, today it's my job to look at X companies every day from an investment perspective.
Yeah.
And for example, the profit could be very high. You'd say, wow, great company, let's invest, and so on and so forth, right? But then you turn a page and you start looking at some of the balance sheet numbers. And I apologize if some of the people, may find some of these terms slightly
Yeah.
unfamiliar. But you'll get used to it. It's very, very common, right? You look at some of these numbers and say, oh my God, the company has a huge amount of receivables or a huge amount of what's called debtors. You start looking at it, "Ye kyun hoga?" And then you start thinking in terms of what are the journal entries that were needed to actually have this high number of profit, the high number, and then you say, could it be possible that the company may have actually inflated its sales or revenues, right? And if it's inflated its revenues, is it possible that the profit may be overstated? And you start thinking in those terms, right? So those are some of the things which I'm using today as we speak, and it helps you prevent a lot of minefields in the kind of money I can deploy.
I would like to add an example to this, right? So that it again gets simplified for our audiences. I know of a startup, right, very well known, where your revenue came in, but your offering, the service that you had to give was for the next let's say 4 or 5 months. Now, if you are, let's say, taking 50,000 rupees and you're delivering the service for the next 4 or 5 months, and that 50,000 hasn't hit your bank account because it'll hit you over time, and you recognize that 50,000 as your revenue. But
Because
then,
the contract has been entered into today.
because the contract has been entered into today, and let's say the customer doesn't like your service, the customer kind of goes off after paying for 1 month, but you recognize 50,000 as your revenue, but it never came, right? Only 5,000 came and the 45,000 is not there. I think that's an example of an inflated revenue.
It's a classic example of an inflated revenue. Incidentally, if you're a CA, you would also know, and you'd be taught and it'll be drilled into your head, that this is against accounting principles. There is a regulation which says that you can recognize revenue only when you have rendered the service. In this particular case, just because you entered into a contract and you haven't rendered the service, and the service has to be rendered over the next 3 or 4 or 5 months, this revenue, at least in your statutory accounts that you display to the rest of the world, cannot be shown as revenue.
Got it.
What companies end up doing is they show it internally in their internal MIS, and then they show it to a private set of investors and say, oh, by the way, this is what I'm doing, etc. etc.
Yeah.
But if you were to get the same numbers signed by an auditor, he wouldn't sign off on them.
Got it. So again, and you're saying these kind of skills would have, now coming back to the answer that you were giving of the skills that you
Yeah.
used over time. So I think one is, now when you look at any balance sheets, you're like, hey, something is off here.
Or something is truly good, right?
Yeah.
And at times, even the entrepreneur doesn't understand fully
Yeah.
the kind of, and I'm sorry, I'm going to use another technical term here, operating leverage he's sitting on, or where the company trajectory can go, right? Or whether he should be raising equity or he should be raising debt. So a lot of that stuff is something, because you're a bit of an expert, आपको पता चल जाता है, right? At times उससे पहले भी. Because a lot of the entrepreneurs actually come from, so for example, the great brilliant minds from IIT and wherever else, right?
Yeah.
But this is a skill set which they may or may not fully understand or have with them, because they're busy doing other stuff.
No, I remember a conversation with you probably a year back when you kind of broke down the Masters Union business for us, right? And surprisingly, you said, hey, Swati, 25% of your cost is just this. That day, I walked back saying such a simple line that 25% of my cost is this factor. And if this can come down, everything can become better. And I think as entrepreneurs, those aha moments are needed, right? Because day in, day out, as an entrepreneur, you're just building and you're not thinking about the leverage that you have or a huge cost that you're sitting on, which can be optimized. So I think that's where the financial experts come into picture.
And while I'm carrying that bit of, and that's just pure training, right, that you carry on with in life. The other thing which really helps you as well, and this really helped me in all my business roles, is just a basic depth of thinking, right? And when I say a basic depth of thinking, what I mean is, I think carrying on to the point you just made, all of us take XYZ actions in a business situation, right? Back in the day when I was a CEO or CEO or whatever else, 18,000 things you sign off on or whatever else, right, that you do. But at the back of your mind, you have to keep constantly thinking, is what I'm doing accretive to the earnings of the company or not? For example, I may sign off on an ad bill saying, oh, by spending 100 rupees on an ad, my revenue is going to go up by 500 rupees, right?
Yeah.
A lot of people will say that's nice, right? But if you're a CEO or if you're just trained in finance, you'll say, okay, I'll sign off on 100 rupees of ad spend. My revenues will go up by 500 bucks. But what if my profit margin is only 10%?
Yeah.
Right? Then I'm actually just signing off on 100 bucks to earn 50 bucks. It just absolutely doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
On the other hand, if the margin is 200, go ahead.
Please do
right?
it. Yeah.
Etc. etc. So a lot of the operating rules and the people in the operating rules maybe it's paucity of time or this or that, or because it's a constant skill that you
built.
spent learning.
Yeah.
You're always thinking in those terms, right?
And then the
Every time you're
decisions
taking a
that you
decision,
make as a leader,
it'll be so much better.
so much better because you can see through all of those things. Great. Now there's this question that everybody's asking, which is the impact of AI, right? I'll tell you what I'm trying to ask here. I think 5 years back when I had to file my taxes, I really any question I had to call my CA and ask, ऐसे कर लें, वैसे कर लें, all of that. Today, I think the chat GPT can give me that answer, right, very easily, saying this is the bucket you fall into, this is how you file it, and pretty much faster than my CA, it gives me an answer. What is the impact of AI on the roles that we've been talking about?
Let me make it a slightly more general answer, right?
Sure.
Not just finance specific. The answer I give today will probably be a little different than the answer I might be giving 3 years later.
Sure.
But let's stick to where today is. A lot of your basic research roles, right, can easily be subsumed by AI today. For example, what did you do earlier? What is the last date of filing a tax return? Back in the day, you referred to newspapers and whatever else. And then Google came, Google made life simpler.
Correct.
Today, you can ask a very specific question. I am this individual, I have income only from salary and this and that. When is my last date?
Correct.
You don't have to go to any website or whatever. You're going to get that answer from a ChatGPT, Perplexity, this, that, or whatever else. Aapka ye hai, right? Full stop.
Yeah.
Similarly, if I want to know, tell me about XYZ company and its financials and its financial ratios, etc., rather than going through 5 sites to look for all that information, I can get that in a very nice formatted form.
Yeah.
And therefore, a certain kind of roles and time spent, etc., will not be needed anymore. It's kind of very similar to when computers came, right? Certain kinds, or even when Google came, certain kinds of things you don't need to spend time on, but that's fine. The trick is what happens when I want to actually take a call on a company, or I actually want to do something which is actually, for example, if I want to plan my taxes,
Yeah.
or if I want to say, here's this company in country A, here's another company in country B. Company B wants to take over the assets of company A. Should it do a merger? Should it do assets buy? Should it 4 or 5 ways in which you can do that?
Yeah.
AI won't be able to help you there. Or if it does, you'll have to double, triple, quadruple check it.
Yeah.
And the reason is simple, right? What is AI as we understand it today? The backbone of that is language processing, right? Very fancy way of doing a lot of language processing.
Yeah.
But that's been the fundamental, right? But when you're doing creative thinking, or when you're doing something very, very specialized, it may not have that kind of information back with it for it to be able to pull out relevant information and give it to you in a very, very situation specific thing. So those skills actually are going to become more and more important in my view, because the base skills, etc., are now taken care of.
Which I think is a great position to be in, because what you're saying is, when I started my career, right, the first 2 years were more research, figure out these data points, make this table comparing all these companies, all of that grunt work.
It is a rite of passage, right? ये तो करना पड़ेगा.
Correct. So all of that work can now be done through this tool,
Right.
which leaves an ample time for somebody to skill themselves on taking the right calls once the data is available.
Yeah.
Right? Doing all of that, I think, and
And Swati, when was the last time school or even any of our education system taught us to take decisions under ambiguity? नहीं होता ना.
only life teaches you that.
वो life teaches you that, because आपके maths question भी आप करते हो तो every piece of information is there in the maths question.
Yeah.
Right? That part today can be done by AI. Right? But the moment I give you one less piece of information, you don't know that.
Then you take the judgment.
That's when you, or even for you to be able to ask the right question. यार ये information तो है ही नहीं इस question में, right?
Yeah, this is missing.
तो school system तो नहीं सिखाया था आपको ये, to ask the right questions. I think that kind of skill is going to become more and more relevant in all professions, not just in finance.
No, fair. And with Masters Union, I think we are hoping to build that skill.
That's right.
Given you're saying schools are not doing it, so let's hope the colleges start to do that. But with that, thank you so much, Rajat, for taking out the time today and helping our students and their parents understand what finance roles can lead to.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you.